Alright, well, it's time to get back into it. And ignore that save that's further along. We're gonna go back into this one. Yeah, the last recording I did, the audio was not well. So I can't wait to do all of this again. So they're back on their way to civilization. But would they ever be able to make it back alive? Maybe they would, if Roberta didn't snap and murder Georgia somewhere along the way. I wish she would. This tree really does look awfully familiar. That was the fourth time Percy had made this observation. Samantha knew. She had been counting. Roberta ground her teeth together, pressing one hand against her temple. A vein in her forehead was throbbing. You don't have a headache, do you? What do you think? Isn't that to be expected given the circumstances? I'm sorry. I know it was a stupid question. I was just trying to make conversation. I hope you will forgive me, Sam, when I say I'm not in the mood for conversation right now. Yes, of course. I'll be quiet. Roberta had been trying hard, very hard, to keep her temper under control this last hour, but it had been boiling away underneath her strained expression all the same, like lava inside a volcano. Roberta hated being lost, and she hated being disoriented, and she hated being confused. These were simply not Roberta-esque states of being. Roberta was a thorough girl who enjoyed bringing order to disorderly things, which was, Samantha often pondered, the main reason Roberta to be her friend. Roberta liked planning things, and she liked making schedules, and above all else, she liked keeping to them. This school trip, unfortunately, had been nothing short of a disaster. Everything that could have gone wrong had gone wrong, and it was driving Roberta crazy. The pressure was building. With just the slightest provocation, she was going to snap. And the poor soul who unwittingly provided that provocation was Samantha. I wish Lily was here. She shouldn't have said that. Samantha had not meant to say it out loud. Instead, she muttered it under her breath, more to herself than anyone else. And their numerous arguments on the subject of Miss Lillian Wordsworth, Samantha knew better than to bring her name up around Roberta, particularly when Roberta was in a foul mood. Samantha might have been masochistic, but she wasn't stupid. Far from it, in fact. But it didn't matter what her intentions were. She had let this small prayer slip from her lips, regardless, and Roberta had heard her. "Excuse me, Samantha. Samantha paused. Roberta had stopped walking. Their walking was probably pointless anyway, given they seemed to have been going around in circles, but this sudden cessation of movement, a break in the status quo, seemed to signify something. Something deeply unsettling. Samantha's heart convulsed. It was almost as though it had sensed danger, was trying to eject itself from her body in a self-defeating manner of self-preservation. Roberta? Are you all right? I believe you have already asked me, Samantha, and my answer now is much the same as it was before. I am not all right. In fact, I am the exact opposite of all right. I have been doing my very best to remain calm, despite our adverse circumstances. That is what I am used to, after all. When I am with you, I always have to be the mature one, the responsible one, whilst you are afforded the luxury of whining and complaining. However, Samantha gulped. She didn't like the sign that forever. However, much like their close cousins, the buts and the becauses, never heralded pleasant news. I've had enough of it. All you ever do is rely on people. You're incapable of doing things for yourself. And why are you still thinking about Lillian, anyway? I thought she stopped being friends with you. Don't you remember? Because I do. You were crying for weeks afterwards, and I was the one who had to hear it. I was the one who had to deal with it. I've always been there for you, wherever you go through one of your maudlin turns or manic episodes. No matter how late it is or how inconvenient, I'm always there to listen to your worries. Responsible, reliable Roberta. Well, now I see that I'm also irrelevant, Roberta. Even though I put so much effort into our friendship, you still don't appreciate it. You never think about me. All you do is think about her. If Lillian were to apologize to you, then you would drop our friendship in a heartbeat. You're so fickle, Sam, and so selfish, too. I'm just somebody convenient you can turn to for help, but you don't really value me as a human being. It's like you don't even realize I have feelings, too. And you, I can't believe you're still thinking about her, that you're still so obsessed. You're obsessed with a girl who wants nothing to do with you anymore. A girl who must be far, far smarter than I evidently am, because she realized you were a pain long before I did, and so refuses to put up with you anymore. Well, I'm through with it. I don't want to babysit a stupid girl desperate to get her heart trampled on anymore. If you want to be hurt by Lillian, then go ahead. Be my guest, but don't come crawling to me when it all blows up in your face again. I'm sick of it. Samantha started at Roberta, her eyes wide, struck dumb. For a girl who was fairly talented at arranging words in accessible, intelligent ways, her exam results said as much. Samantha couldn't say a word. How could she respond to that? Every single one of Roberta's barbed comments hit home, tipped with an exquisite kind of poison which burnt a hole through Samantha's already damaged ego. Although that barrage of insults had come out in a mad rush, expelled from Roberta's mouth as though it was something disgusting and shameful, it had been too clearly articulated to have been born from a momentary burst of anger. Roberta did not do spur of the moment, not even now as she stood there, hair windswept, face flushed with rage, her fingers clenched into fists. Even after she had shouted so hard her vocal cords threatened to tear, her words had not been unprecedented, unmeditated. Roberta had meant what she had said, down to the very last syllable. Maybe Samantha had been pushing it too far these last few weeks. Now Roberta didn't even want to be her friend anymore, just like Lillian before her. Once people grew to know Samantha well enough, they began to realize Samantha's cheerful smiles and self-effacing barbs were all for show. She could be funny, yes, and charming too, but underneath it all she was neurotic, anxious, and perpetually troubled. And it was just too much for most people to deal with. So that was it. Roberta hated her. Maybe she had hated her for a long, long time, and she had been far too polite to tell her. Well, at least she knew now. That was good, wasn't it? Nice and refreshing. The truth was a beautiful thing. It should have been, if only it didn't hurt so much. Samantha sniffled. It took her a few moments to realize she was crying. Her tears, hot and salty, dripped down her cheeks, cooling fast from the cold wind. There was no remorse to be had, not from Lillian, not Roberta, not from herself either. She couldn't refute Roberta's claims. It would be impossible. She knew Roberta was telling the truth. She was a pain, a burden. Maybe she shouldn't have gone on this trip to begin with. Maybe it would have been better if she had spent these 2 days holed up in her bedroom, alone, lying under her duvet with her eyes closed, pretending to be dead. That way, she wouldn't be able to upset anyone. So, this was for the best, right? It would make everybody happier? Tears the size of penny pieces dripping down her cheeks, Samantha turned and ran. She didn't know where she was going, but that was fine. She hadn't known where she was beforehand, anyway, and anywhere, and absolutely anywhere would be better than being with Roberta, being scrutinized under her cold, passionless gaze, which held not a single shred of love, not a single shard of compassion. If only she could run away from herself, too. But that was the one thing she knew she could never do. No matter how quick her stride, how furious her footsteps, she couldn't outrun her own mind. And she's gone, and we will catch up with her later at the end of this episode. But first, we've got to deal with the Mega Bitch. Wow, Georgia whistled. Now that was something else. I felt like I was in the middle of a soap opera. Oh, God. Oh, I just recorded this episode. I have to listen to fucking Bitch Face again. Alright. Roberta trembled, her face white. She had already said things, horrible things, that she couldn't take back. It hadn't even been because she was mad at Samantha, not really, although it was true those lingering resentments had been building up unchecked within her for quite some time, like cobwebs in an old abandoned house. Although Samantha had been grating on Roberta's patience, and Roberta had been meaning to have a serious talk with the other girl for a while now, this had undoubtedly been a bad time to hold this discussion. No shit. Particularly when it had not been a discussion, so much as a one-sided verbal assault which Samantha had been incapable of dealing with. Roberta sighed, running one hand through her hair. She hadn't lost her temper like that in a long while. And now Samantha was gone. She had run away, and Roberta had no idea where she was, because in this big open field, there's no way you can track somebody down. If we find out she's hung herself from a tree or drowned in a lake, I guess we'll all know who to blame. Percy and I are witnesses. This isn't funny, Georgia. Roberta's shoulders tensed. Don't be ridiculous. She isn't going to die. You say that, but Samantha is kind of pathetic, don't you think? She's the kind of girl who could probably drown herself in 2 feet of water. Roberta winced. Cruel though her words were, Georgia did have a point. Samantha had never been the most resilient person. Don't feel too bad, though, Bobby. If she really does die, she'd probably thank you for it. Hasn't she been depressed for a long, long time? It's hard to tell, given she makes so many jokes about it, but I don't think she's a very happy person. Then this is just fine. Samantha is obviously too much of a coward to kill herself without a push in the right direction, so you did her a real favor there, Bobby. Georgia. Roberta held a hand to her mouth. She looked as though she was going to be sick. Please don't say that. I feel terrible. It's no use getting a conscience now, Bobby. What's done is done. You can't change the past. Oh, God. Roberta moaned, burying her head in her hands. Why did Georgia have to sound so gleeful? Her tastes really were macabre. Well, a pause. It's not like I don't understand how you feel, Bobby. I can be pretty horrible sometimes, but I suppose I have to give credit where credit's due, even to you. Taking care of Sam, day in, day out, must be quite a chore. I hardly even know the girl, and she annoys me whenever I see her. Everybody annoys you, Georgia. True, but I think it is somewhat impressive that you have been able to stay by her for such a long time, Bobby. And it was kind of cool seeing you get all worked up like that. I've never heard you shout like that before. For a moment there, you actually sounded passionate. I just noticed Percy just fucks off. She just leaves. We're walking in a group and she's just gonna move a little bit faster. Or we're sitting down and she's decided, you know what, I'm just gonna stand over here away from this conversation. And look what good it caused. Passion only causes problems. Oh, sorry, that was not George's line, that was Roberta's. Perhaps, but life would be far less enjoyable without it. It suited you well. I don't know about that. I do. Take my word for it. I do not give compliments easily. And, I guess since this whole thing was kind of my fault, I'm sorry. Huh? Roberta let her hands fall from her face. A small, tentative smile began to tug at the corners of her lips. Maybe Georgia wasn't that bad after all. Well, thank you. No problem. I'm beginning to get a little worried, though. Worried? You? I hardly believe it. There's a first time for everything. I've been thinking. Georgia placed one hand underneath her chin, pondering. If Samantha really does die, do you think I would be an accessory to the crime? Boom. Instantly, any goodwill Roberta may have felt towards Georgia was snuffed, like a candle being blown out. You're not sorry at all, you two-faced liar. Beep beep. Ah, But before Roberta had a chance to continue her tirade, she was silenced by an electronic jingle emitting from her pocket. It was her phone that was just a little dirty earlier, but now everything's all fine and dandy. Her poor, much-abused phone. It was working again. Whew. And now we've made it back. And Samantha's running. But it's okay, because we're all caught up again. I haven't seen the rest of these scenes. And we can get to things that I don't know what are going to happen. So, we're going to take care of Sam. We're going to get her on her feet. She's not going to do anything crazy or reckless, because she's going to listen to me, her conscience. Or so we hope. Because as of yet, I think I've made 3 decisions. And I think all my decisions have been, just don't say anything. Just keep your mouth shut, which would have solved this problem here, actually. But we'll get her fixed out. We'll give her the confidence she needs. And I will see you all in the next episode. And I hope that this saves.